Imam al-Hussein showed that he is superior. Imam al-Hussein showed that he is victorious through his akhlaq. The victory of Imam al-Hussein was symbolized in his sabr. Victory of Imam al-Hussein was symbolized through his perseverance. Victory of Imam al-Hussein was symbolized through those noble values which he stood up for. Imam al-Hussein emerged victorious from the plains of Karbala through his ideology. In that, through his blood and the blood of the companions that was spilt, you find that the ideology of Imam al-Hussein is prevalent in every corner of this world. Symbolize the victory of Imam al-Hussein such that Karbala became that single most strongest symbol of resistance towards dhulm until the day of judgment. Karbala became the symbol for nobility. Karbala became the symbol of honor. Karbala became the symbol of haqq until the day of judgment. And you find that for Bani Umayyah, they were losers in every sense of the aspect. Imam al-Hussein went to Karbala, and on the day of Ashura, his soul ascended towards the heavens. He left Karbala having achieved everything that he wanted from this sacrifice, from this battlefield. And you find that Bani Umayyah did not gain anything that they wanted from that battlefield. If anything, Karbala became the reason for the downfall of the dynasty of Bani Umayyah. You find that Imam al-Hussein exposed them for who they truly were. The party of the devil disguised within the robes of Islam. Imam al-Hussein exposed them in such a manner such that they revealed their true mask in front of the world, and any free-minded intellectual seeking for the truth, when he looks at Bani Umayyah, he does nothing but spit on them and invoke eternal damnation for what they did. This could not have been possible except through the Battle of Karbala. For you find that Imam al-Hussein emerged victorious from every dimension conceivable. From the perspective of sabr, akhlaq, from the perspective of nobility, from the perspective of ideology. Today, 1400 years later, you have millions of people who make Karbala their Qibla. And by Qibla, we mean spiritual Qibla. That revolution of inspiration and motivation. Imam al-Hussein captured the hearts of the people. Generation after generation, they are willing to suffer persecution in order to uphold the memory of Imam al-Hussein. Who is this Hussein? Captured the hearts of the people. Look at Karbala now. Ziyara Arbainiya, 20-30 million people abandoned their families, abandoned their work, sacrificed their wealth. They are ready to face death in the eye out of love for Imam al-Hussein. Who is this Hussein? For you find that the Imam emerged victorious from every possible dimension conceivable, including the military perspective of Karbala. Imam al-Hussein emerged victorious even from a military perspective. Ya subhanallah. You find that this is something extremely baffling. How does a group of 72 men majority of whom are in their elderly ages, the likes of Habib ibn Madahir, Muslim ibn Awsaja, Jaun, elderly in their age. How is it that a group of 72 companions went into war against a large army of people? Now it comes to understanding, before we move forward, the number of the army that was within the ranks of Umar ibn Sa'ad al-La'in. We have a number of traditions in regards to the numbers that are there. The first tradition you find from Imam al-Mujtaba and Imam al-Sajjad, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Where Imam al-Sajjad says that La yawm ka yawm al-Husayn, there is no day like the day of my father Hussein. أَقَدْ إِزْدَلَفَ عَلَيْهِ ثَلَاثُونَ أَلْفٍ. There is no day like the day of Hussein. Indeed, he was surrounded, or he was attacked by a group of 30,000 people. وَهُمْ يَزْعَمُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مِنْ أُمَّةِ جَدِّ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ, thinking that they are from the ummah of Rasulullah. يَتَقَرَّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِقَتْلِهِ, seeking proximity towards Allah by shedding the blood of Imam al-Hussein. Look at the ideological deviancy of this group, that they went to Karbala to fight Imam al-Hussein, to kill Imam al-Hussein, thinking that by shedding the blood of the grandson of Rasulullah, they are seeking proximity towards Allah. Qurbatan ilallah. And you find this mentality of Bani Umayyah alive and present even today. You look at all these beasts who are the party of the devil even in this day and age, responsible and guilty of killing the Shia. Do they not say that they are killing the Shia in order to gain proximity towards Allah? Al-Qawm abna'ul Qawm. Yazid may have died as a person, but the mentality of Bani Umayyah is present even today. For you find that the first figure in regards to the army, 30,000 people. Imam al-Sajjad says, and the same thing Imam al-Mujtaba says, 30,000 people. But then you find you have scholars like Allama al-Ardabili, rahmatullah alayh, in his book Hada'ikatu Shia, where he states that the army that came to fight Imam al-Hussein swelled to the number of 100,000. We are of the opinion that both numbers are correct. The figure stated by Imam Zainul Abidin is correct, 30,000, and what Allama Ardabili also narrates, 100,000, is also correct, because the number 30,000 that Imam Sajjad is indicating towards is that initial contingency, or that army that was at the forefront and directly responsible for shedding the blood of Imam al-Hussein. The remaining 70,000 acted as a reinforcement for the 30, and the reinforcement for the other reinforcement. Therefore, if you were to take the number of the entire army, including those who were directly responsible for being in combat, and the other part of the army that was there but not directly responsible, in terms that they were a reinforcement, the entire bigger picture comes up to 100,000, and there is no tabayun between, or contradiction between, these two figures. Each one points out towards a certain perspective of the army. For you find 100,000 people have come to wage war against Imam al-Hussein. Why did Ibn Ziyad al-La'in send 100,000 people? For what reason? These are 72 people. Why such a big number? The first reason, people like Ibn Ziyad had stooped to such a level they could not be considered as human beings anymore. He wanted to wage a war and shed the blood of the grandson of Rasulullah in a manner so beastly, in a manner so gruesome that the world has never seen. He wanted to make an example of Imam al-Hussein, such that nobody would ever think twice about standing up in resistance against Bani Umayyah. The gruesomeness, on the other hand, illustrates the level and the intensity of the hatred that they had in their hearts for the family and the progeny of Rasulullah. This is one. And on the other hand, you find these were a group of people who were jabban, cowards, at the most literal sense of the meaning. They knew the caliber of these 72 men. Each and every one of them is a battalion on its own. And they could not risk, they had this fear of standing in front of these 72 men because they had already known of the bravery of the likes of the people within the army of Imam al-Hussein. These were people who would be terrified upon the contemplation of coming face to face on a battlefield with the likes of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. These are people who were filled with fear, cowards. Which is why when you read the Maqtal, you will find that not a single companion of Imam al-Hussein and not a single youth from the youth of Bani Hashim was killed in fair combat. Not even one. Abadan la. You look at all the nights of the Masa'ib that we have recited. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn attacked from the back. A spear was launched inside his back. Look at Shah Qasim. He was struck with a sword from the back of his head while he was tying the lace of his slipper and standing up. Attack from the back. Cowardly attacks. Look at Abbas. When they attacked him, they threw stones at him from every direction. These were men who had absolutely no sense of courage, had not a single ounce of nobility inside them. Therefore you find not a single companion of Imam al-Hussein was overcome in fair combat. Acts of cowardice where they ganged up on them. For the army of Ibn Ziyad was fully aware of the heroics and the courage of the men standing together with Imam al-Hussein, including Imam al-Hussein. For they come in their numbers of 100,000 in their total. Those directly involved in combat and the reinforcements. We go with the number of Imam al-Sajjad, the people who were there for direct conflict, in the direct line of combat. How is it that a group of 72 men are able to protect themselves and prolong the war on the day of Ashura from the time of Fajr until the time of Asr? Give or take, if you estimate the time between Fajr and Asr, give or take, takriban 10 hours. Here and there. How is it? This is unseen in the history of warfare. That a group of 72 men are able to fight and defend themselves against a force of 30,000 for more than 10 hours. A military operation which truthfully should have ended within an hour or two. What secret did the army of the Imam possess such that this war lasted for over 10 hours? From here you see two things. Number one, as we pointed towards, the caliber of the men standing with Imam al-Hussein. This was courage and honor that came from where? Not necessarily physical courage. These were people, when they went to do their jihad, were hungry and thirsty for 3 days under the scorching sun. The answer is their spiritual power. The determination that came as a result of their deep love and iman and yaqeen. This is why you find that there is always a lot of importance stressed on building our love for Ahlul Bayt. Because when you are overcome with love, you are able to surpass all the limitations of your body. And you find that this love is not an infatuation. This love is a result of the Iman. Your alliance with Ahlul Bayt is a direct representation of your deep belief in Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we have been trying to establish over the last few days. Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. You cannot separate Tawheed from obedience towards Ahlul Bayt. And you find that the Quran warrants this. Yani ajib, sometimes you find people come forward with ishkal. How is it that Ali al-Akbar killed 200 people? How is it that Abu al-Fadl Abbas killed 500 people? How is it that this companion killed 80, that companion killed 300, 400? They come and they say, no, la, these are exaggerations of the Battle of Karbala. Sure, yeah, exaggeration. This is a promise and this is a covenant that is given to us within the Quran. Look at Surah Al-Anfal. We're answering the ishkal where people say, how is it that the likes of Ali al-Akbar could kill 200 people? How is it possible one person who is hungry and thirsty for 3 days killed? And then they come and they do tuhma. And they accuse these muballighin and ulama who narrate accounts like this. Look at what is written in Surah Al-Anfal. Surah Al-Anfal. This ayah is revealed when the Rasulullah is in a state of war. And just to make it clear, when we say Rasulullah is in a state of war, defensive war, Rasulullah, not a single war in his life, he initiated violence. In fact, they were the recipients of violence the entire time. War is an emergency measure that is used for self-defense. And with all the 80 battles that took place over the 13 years when the Rasulullah, or for the time that Rasulullah was in Medina, from the 80 wars / battles that took place, the total number of casualties on both sides did not exceed 1,000. Go and read Islamic history. It shows you that even in a state of war, where you are the one being oppressed, and you were in a form of self-defense, even at that time, Islam's main focus is minimize the casualty, because violence is not justified in Islam. In any case, this verse of the Quran is revealed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhan nabi, harridh al-mu'minina ala al-qital. Ya Rasulullah, motivate your people, motivate the mu'mineen. Do not be intimidated by the large numbers that you are surrounded with. Why? إِيَّكُنْ مِنْكُمْ عِشْرُونَ صَابِرُونَ يَغْلِبُوا مِئَتَيْنِ. Allahu Akbar. Allah is telling Rasulullah that tell you the mu'mineen not to worry, not to be intimidated, not to be overcome with fear. Indeed, 20 mu'mineen, 20 believers who have sabr in them. Sabr over here means that they have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because they have tawakkul, they have sabr. 20 people who have sabr and have tawakkul on Allah. Allah is telling us in the Quran that Allah will give the power of 20 pious mu'mineen who have sabr. He will give them enough power to overcome 200 people. This is for a regular mu'min who has sabr. Then what about the likes of the companions of Imam al-Hussein, who Imam himself says there is no companions who before you and after you who are as loyal as you. They are at the highest level of sabr. For to discount and to mock narrations like these is equivalent to mocking the prophecies and the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Do not be surprised when you hear in the Maqtal, Ali al-Akbar killed 200 people, or Abu al-Fadl killed 800 people, more or less. La. These are people who possessed within them spiritual power. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he was asked, how did you lift the door of Khaybar that 80 other people could not even be able to move or lift? Was it from the power of your body? Amir al-Mu'mineen says it wasn't a power that was jismani, it wasn't a power that was physical. This was a power that was spiritual. For you find that, coming back to our kalam, 72 men holding back an army of 30,000 people for more than 10 hours or just around 10 hours, when what would normally be expected is that the battle finishes in less than an hour or two. The fact that the army of Imam was able to keep them apart and stretch the battle for 10 hours, number one, shows you the caliber of the men. And number two, it shows you the expertise and the skill and the wisdom that Imam al-Hussein had when it came to warfare. Military tactique. The fact that the war lasted for 10 hours or so shows you the greatness of the commander of that army. At the end of the day, Imam al-Hussein is the son of Haydar al-Karrar, military chief and advisor and consultant of Rasulullah. For therefore tonight, inshallah, for the time that we have, we shall try to discuss certain aspects of the battlefield and some of those strategic military decisions from a military perspective that Imam al-Hussein conducted and implemented, as a result of which we are able to deduce his superiority even from a military perspective over Bani Umayyah. All this with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For every battle and every war that takes place, you find that tactique and strategy is of utmost importance. And the Imam being a ma'soom Imam, perfect in every field, including the art of war. The narrations mention that from the first tactics of the Imam in regards to the military structure and the war is that when Imam al-Hussein reached Karbala on the 2nd of Muharram, before the Imam settled the camps and the tents, the Imam conducted a survey of the entire land of Karbala. In that he saw that the land of Karbala, where they are, there is the river Furat crossing by these plains. Wherever the river crosses through the plains, that means the immediate surrounding areas next to the river is land which is fertile. Which is why you read that the river Furat, around it there were a number of palm trees. This is the route that Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas took back from the Furat to go to the Mukhayyam, to the Khaymaga, which is why Zayd al-Ruqad al-La'in and Hakim ibn Tufayl al-La'in, how did they strike the arms of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas? They were hiding behind a palm tree. So we understand that the immediate land which is surrounding the river or around the river, and generally speaking land which is close to rivers, is land which is fertile. These were lands that had palm trees in them. It would not be logical and it would not be strategically wise to set camp over there in the midst of all these palm trees. Gives the enemy an opportunity to hide and ambush them and attack them. So there was this one side of Karbala, the area of the Furat with palm trees. And then in addition to this, there was a wide open desert space. There was a wide plain covered with sand. And this was surrounded by plateaus or small hills. Plateau in Arabic is known as Till, small hill, which is why you have Till Zainabiyya. On a day like tomorrow, Yawm al-Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein went into the Maidan and was surrounded by the enemies, Sayyidah Zainab runs out of the Khaymaga and she stands on that till to overlook into the Maidan where she witnesses the final moments of Imam al-Hussein. For therefore you find that in addition to the fertile land with palm trees, there was an open desert area. This desert area was then surrounded by plateaus. Which is when Imam al-Hussein surveyed the land, he decided to pitch the tents close to the plateaus. Which is why you find even today the position of the Khaymaga is east of the Til Zainabiyya. Why? Imam al-Hussein pitched the tents around the plateaus, and on the other hand there was the river. In this way Imam al-Hussein was able to define the parameters of the battlefield and restricted it to that desert plains between the plateaus and the river. Straight away you find the first military tactic of Imam al-Hussein is that he defined the parameters of the Maidan. Number one. Number 2, on the night of Ashura, night like this, Imam al-Hussein commanded all his loyal companions to get together and to dig a khandak, to dig a trench in the shape of an ark, to protect the tents from behind them. And this is why on the day of Ashura, as they dug the trench, they chopped down trees in the forms or pieces of wood to make firewood. They threw the firewood into the khandak, and on the day of Ashura after Fajr, Imam al-Hussein lit the khandak on fire. Why did the Imam do this? The Imam digs a trench from the back, number 1, to protect the women during the time of battle. Because you are facing against an army that has absolutely no honor, an army that has absolutely no values, no etiquette, no morality. And the first thing they would do is at the first opportunity given to them, they would attack the women, which is the biggest sign of a coward. For they dig a trench and they light it on fire to protect the camp from behind them. Not only the lighting of the fire or the digging of the khandak acted as a defense or protection for the women, but through this strategy, Imam al-Hussein forced the enemy to attack him from a single direction. They were not able to attack Imam al-Hussein from every direction. When you are 72 people, and you have to defend yourselves from every direction, it becomes easy for you to get disintegrated and then to be overcome. Therefore, Imam al-Hussein saw it is of utmost importance that if we are going to sustain ourselves in this battle, we need to be united in a single front and face the enemy from a single direction. Over here, there is a big lesson that is to be taken outside the art of military or outside the art of warfare. Imam al-Hussein emphasized on the unity of these 72 men. So long as you are united, so long as you are one, so long as you are not separated amongst each other, you constitute to be a great force amongst you that can attack and keep away 100,000 people. This is a lesson for us. When it comes to building unity amongst ourselves, Shia of Ahlul Bayt. Ya Subhanallah. We try to put forward our hands to outsiders and build bridges with outsiders, which is important and in its place. Definitely, without a doubt. But we do that, and at the same time we are burning down our own house and fighting in-house and breaking relationship with other Shia. We cannot tolerate each other, bear enmity with each other, and then try to go and build bridges outside. You cannot repair somebody else's house when your own house is on fire. Unity amongst ourselves, Shia of Ahlul Bayt, unity and love between each and every person who carries inside his heart the love and the wilaya of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. In any case, Imam al-Hussein digs the khandak and lights it on fire in order to force the enemy in combat from a single direction. Ahibba'i, now sit back and think. So far, you have an army of 72 people against an army of 30,000 people. And up to this point, Imam al-Hussein has dictated and imposed upon the enemy the parameter of the battlefield, and has even imposed upon them the direction of attack. Subhanallah. Which war in history have you seen where the minority is the one that dictates the parameter of the battlefield and the direction of the war in the battlefield. You don't find this anywhere except in Karbala. And you will only find it in Karbala because you have a military leader such as Sayyid al-Shuhada Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. For you find the first strategy surveying the land. Number 2, Imam al-Hussein dug the trench and lit it on fire on the day of Ashura. Number 3, the actual tactics and the strategies that were implemented on the day of Ashura. Day like tomorrow, Yawm Adhim la Yawm ka Yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. Have to be very careful on how you approach tomorrow, how you spend tonight. This is the day where the entire Kawn weeps for Imam al-Hussein. The Malaika are doing azah for Imam al-Hussein. The animals are doing azah for Imam al-Hussein. The jinn are doing azah for Imam al-Hussein. Let us be very careful of our attitude on a night like this. Ziyarat Ashura, we condemn those people who expressed their happiness and their joy on the day when Imam al-Hussein was killed. Let us be absolutely clear on what our attitude, our sentiments, and how we deal with each other and how we speak with each other on a night like this. Let us not be from amongst those who are laughing and expressing joy when on a night like this, the daughters of Rasulullah such as Zainab al-Kubra were weeping and wailing. Even for this split moment, do not be with the character of Bani Umayyah on a night like this. This is a night of grief. It's not a night of games or jokes or laughter. Abadan la. This one night, this one day is an exception to the entire year. And it's supposed to be an exception in the conduct, the manner in which we behave and speak with each other. For be careful of the night which you are in and the day in which you are. Not that we are claiming to be Shi'at of Hussein and we are laughing and filled with joy on a day where Rasulullah is weeping for Imam al-Hussein. Ala kullin, the day of Ashura, time of Salatul Fajr comes in. Imam al-Hussein leads Salatul Fajr with this group of 72 companions. As soon as the Salat is finished, you find that Imam al-Hussein arranges his army in a certain format. He divides this army of 72. What is mashhur is that there were 32 horsemen and 40 foot soldiers. Even from the 72, not each and every one of them had a horse to ride on. Subhanallah. They were a minority, but they were not intimidated. And this is another practical lesson for you and me. In your daily life, you could be a minority because of your ideology. Do not be intimidated by it. If there is any lesson that we can take from Karbala, this is the lesson to take home. Not to be intimidated, not to compromise your deen and your aqidah because you're a minority. La. In any case, Imam al-Hussein gathers these 72 men, 32 horsemen, 40 foot soldiers. He arranges them in 3 ranks in a format. He makes a right wing, a left wing, and a center flank. The commander of the right wing is Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. The commander of the left wing is Habib ibn Madahir. And then you have the center flank with 17 Bani Hashim, and the flag bearer and the commander-in-chief of the entire army, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas ibn Murtada. Imam al-Hussein arranges his army in these 3 ranks. And then he goes forward and he delivers a khutbah inviting the people towards Islam. Even at this point, Imam al-Hussein is emphasizing on a manner of solving this dispute in a non-violent manner. Subhanallah. He goes, he delivers a khutbah. No result. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn goes to deliver a khutbah, no result. Burair goes to deliver a khutbah, no result. Finally, Imam al-Hussein delivers a second khutbah, no result. Imam performs 2 miracles, one of which we talked about. 2 mu'jizas the Imam performs to wake these people from their ghafla. سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. They had fallen to the depths of deviation. There is no hope. Until in the end, Umar ibn Sa'ad al-La'in comes in the middle of the Maidan, and he takes out an arrow, he puts it in his bow, and he says, O people, O army of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, bear witness for me in front of Ibn Ziyad and in front of Yazid that I was the first one to shoot the arrow on the camp of Imam al-Hussein. The narration mentions he shot the arrow, and this arrow went and pierced the tents of the women. The women start wailing, the children start wailing, and at this time the entire army showered arrows on the camp of Imam al-Hussein. They protected themselves with their shields. At this point, Imam al-Hussein said to them, now Allah has given you permission to defend yourselves in war against them. For the narration mentions that as soon as the war began, it was within the tradition of the Arab warfare that as a battle begins, the first people in the battle will never be a general combat. First, the two most revered, experienced, brave warriors will come out on a one-to-one duel. And so the narration mentions that Ibn Sa'ad sent two people by the name of Yasir, the slave of Zayd ibn Abi Sufyan, and Salim, the slave of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. They came out as the initial swordsmen who was supposed to represent the courage and the strength of the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. They come out and they challenge the companions of Imam al-Hussein to a duel with the sword. Imam al-Hussein sees both of them. He tells one of his companions to stand up by the name of Abu Wahab. First, Habib ibn Madahir and Muslim ibn Awsaja stood up and were ready to accept the challenge. Imam al-Hussein says to Habib, no, sit down. We shall send Abu Wahab. Abu Wahab was a companion who was extraordinarily tall with broad shoulders. And he had this aura within him that he would create sort of fear within the army. This is the initial duel of the battle, the beginning duel of the challenge. The results of such a duel are absolutely important on the outcome and the morale of the rest of the army. For the narration mentions Abu Wahab comes out. He accepts the challenge from Yasir and from Salim. This one single companion of Imam al-Hussein, Abu Wahab, was able to gain victory over both Yasir and Salim, sending them to Jahannam wa bi'sal masir. And this is how the battle of Karbala begins. The army of Umar ibn Sa'ad says, this is one person, Abu Wahab, who we have never even heard about, whose heroics are not even counted in the books. One soldier who is unknown from the army of Imam al-Hussein comes and kills single-handedly two of our most courageous, well-known swordsmen. This has a great impact on the morale of the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, because now they begin to panic. They have seen two mu'jizas. One unknown person has killed two of their most revered, most experienced swordsmen. And over here you see Umar ibn Sa'ad gives a command in order for the morale of the army not to break. He sends a command for the right wing of his army under the command of Amr ibn Hajjaj al-La'in to attack the right wing of Imam al-Hussein. And therefore you find after this one-on-one duel, the right wing of the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad al-La'in attacks the right wing of the army of Imam al-Hussein. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn is in charge of the right wing. The narrations mention that as thousands of horsemen came rushing towards the right wing of Imam al-Hussein, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn arranged his men in two orders. In the first order, he put the soldiers who were were on foot using spears. They bent down on one knee. They formed a formation like a wall. They bent down on one knee. They firmly planted their spears into the ground at a 45-degree angle, such that as the horses ran, they ran into the spears and got hamstrung. They were not able to move forward. And so they retreated. And as they were retreating, the second group of men who were standing behind the men with the spears were the archers, shooting arrows at them, forcing them to retreat. For subhanallah, you have men on horses, horsemen who are not able to come forward because they're being pierced by the spears. And on top of that, they are being showered with arrows. So when they retreat, they are trampling on their own men. Which is why when they retreat, they see that there are hundreds of their men who have been killed within this initial attack. Subhanallah. Where in history have you seen that a group of 72 men defend their fort successfully against an army of 30,000? Not only were they successful in defending their fort, but they adapted a strategy which was offensive and made the other army retreat. Where have you seen this in history? 72 men force 30,000 people to retreat. La yawm ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. These are not normal men. These are the men of God who are fighting under Hussein ibn Ali, who are holding the alam of haq. So the narration mentions that Amr ibn Hajjaj is forced to retreat when he sees the number of people killed in his side. Out of anger and in order to take vengeance, they attack the right wing again for a second time. At-Tabari in his Tariq says, فَاقْتَتَلُوا فَتَضَارَبُوا وَاقْتَتَلُوا سَاعَةً faraja'u or fataraja'u. A second time they attack the right wing of Imam al-Hussein under the leadership of Zuhair ibn al-Kain. The fighting goes on for an entire hour. The camp of Imam al-Hussein is able to maintain their fort, and the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad is forced to retreat for a second time. Look at the military expertise of Imam al-Hussein. Not only did he define the battleground for them, not only did he impose the direction of war, not only did he defend his fort but forced them to retreat, he changed the strategy from that of defense to offensive. Read any history in the world. Read every battle that has taken place since human history has started to begin to be authored. You will not find a battle as spectacular as the Battle of Karbala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For the narration mentions that the right wing has lost hope and are in despair. They have been inflicted with a number of injuries, and they are seen to be incapable of attacking and breaking the right wing. So at this time, Umar ibn Sa'ad changes strategy. In the second attack on the right wing, it was during the second attack that Muslim ibn Awsaja became shaheed. From the companions, majority of those historians who have focused on the analysis of the battle as a battle, they will tell you that Muslim ibn Awsaja was the first companion of Imam al-Hussein to be killed in the second attack on the right wing. Up till then, all the men were intact. When the right wing or the attack on the right wing has failed, you find that Umar ibn Sa'ad changes tactics and he commands Shimr bin Dhil Jawshan al-La'in, who was in charge of the left wing of his army, to attack the left wing of Imam al-Hussein. Keeping in mind that the armies are face to face, when the left wing attacks the left wing of another, they are going across diagonally in the battlefield. And this was used as a tactic to terrorize and to create fear on the side that you are attacking, because they are riding against you or riding towards you with all their horses, in all their might, with all their slogans and weapons. For the army or the contingency, the left wing of Shimr bin Dhil Jawshan al-La'in attacks the wing of left wing of Imam al-Hussein, subhanallah, the left wing is under the commander or under the leadership of Habib ibn Madahir. The narration mentions again that they tried to attack again and again, but at the end of the day, Habib ibn Madahir and his men were so firm that they forced Shimr to retreat. 3 times this army has been made to retreat. What are the ratios? 1 to 400. 72 men against 30,000. Give or take 1 to 400. But the army of Haqq makes the army of Batil retreat 3 times. These are lessons for us to contemplate on. Inta sahibul Haqq inside of you. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. And then the narration mentions that when the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad saw that these systematic attacks are not proving to be efficient and they are getting more and more, they are being inflicted with more and more injuries, this is when Umar ibn Sa'ad said to his army, attack all of them together from every direction. Which is when they attacked them from every direction against the arch. This is what in the Maqtal, which is generally narrated as Hamlatul Ula, when there was a collective attack from them on every direction. This is when 50 companions of Imam al-Hussein became Shaheed. And what we understand is that this was close to the time of Zawal. And then the Salat happened, and as you know, the rest of the Maqtal. But when these remaining companions were there with Imam al-Hussein, they were forced or they engaged on 1-to-1 duels. They went to fight out 1-on-1, sometimes in 2s, sometimes in 3s. And this is how the battle lasted till the time of Asr. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Tonight is the night of Aliyun al-Akbar. Masa'ib Aliyun al-Akbar. The narration mentions that the narrations mention that on the day of Ashura, as the time of Zawal had finished and the time of Dhuhr had been completed, none of the companions of Imam al-Hussein were alive. Each and every one of them had become Shaheed. There was no more Habib, no more Muslim, no more John, no more Abbas. And some of the historians mention that as only the Bani Hashim were remaining, each and every one of them competed from Imam al-Hussein to get permission to go into the Maidan. Some of the historians are of the opinion that the first youth from Bani Hashim to go into the battlefield was Aliyun al-Akbar. Allah. The narration mentions when Aliyun al-Akbar came to his father, Imam al-Hussein, to seek permission from him, Imam al-Hussein looked at him and tears began to flow down his cheeks. Imam al-Hussein hugged Aliyun al-Akbar. Both of them began to cry until they fell down. Aliyun al-Akbar asked for permission to go into the Maidan. The narration mentions the Imam looked at him. He kissed him on the forehead. Allah, Imam al-Hussein is kissing Aliyun al-Akbar on the forehead. Usually the son kisses the father on the forehead. The narration mentions that Imam al-Hussein kissed Aliyun al-Akbar on the forehead. He helped him to wear his armor. He tied for him an amama, just like the way he tied for Qasim. And then he bid Aliyun al-Akbar farewell. Once Aliyun al-Akbar, he helped him mount onto the horse. When Aliyun al-Akbar went into the Maidan, Imam al-Hussein began to weep and he began to cry. He raised his hands up in dua and he said, Allahumma ishhad ala ha'ula'il qawm qad baraza ilayhim غلام أشبه الناس برسول الله خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا. Ya Allah, bear witness against this community that this young man Aliyun al-Akbar, who has come to fight in front of them, he is the one who represents Rasulullah and looks similar to Rasulullah in terms of his speech, in terms of his look, in terms of his actions. Yani Aliyun al-Akbar shabih Rasulullah. He looked just like Rasulullah. His features, his way of talking, his way of walking. It is as if it was not Aliyun al-Akbar who is going to the Maidan. It is as if Rasulullah himself is going into the Maidan. Imam al-Hussein then said, Ya Allah, whenever we wanted to do the ziyarah of Rasulullah, whenever we want to look at Rasulullah, we would look at the face of Aliyun al-Akbar. And then he recited the verse of the Quran while he was crying and his tears were rolling down his cheeks. He said, Inna Allah astafa Adam wa Nuhan wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-alameen. And then he shouted out to Umar ibn Sa'ad. He said, Yamda Sa'ad kata Allahu rahimak kama katalta rahami. He said, Oh Umar ibn Sa'ad, may Allah destroy your lineage the way you were killing my lineage. The narration mentions as Ali al-Akbar went into the battlefield riding his horse, he challenged the enemies reciting a poem. He would say, Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali wa nahnu wa baytullahi awla bin nabi. He would say, Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali, nahnu wa baytullahi awla bin nabi. تالله لا يحكم فينا ابن الدعي أضربكم بالسيف أحامي عن أبي ضرب غلام هاشمي كرشي. Ali al-Akbar said, I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. Indeed, we are the ones who are closest to Rasulullah. Wallah, the illegitimate children shall never rule over us. I shall strike you with my sword and defend you against my father. I will strike you the strike with the strength of a youth who is Hashimi. The narration mentions that Ali al-Akbar did a jihad where he kept attacking the right wing and dismantling them, sending them to the left. The people didn't know, is this Ali al-Akbar or is this Haydar al-Karrar from Barzakh? The narration mentions Imam al-Hussein was standing by the door of the Khayma. He was watching the jihad of Ali al-Akbar. He had killed 120 men. At every time Ali al-Akbar would gain victory, Imam al-Hussein would smile from the door of the tent. Sayyida Layla, the mother of Ali al-Akbar, was looking at the face of Imam al-Hussein. So long as Imam al-Hussein is smiling, she knows that her son is safe. Allah, Allah, until an enemy by the name of Bakr ibn Ghanim came to attack Ali al-Akbar from the side. Suddenly when Imam al-Hussein saw Bakr, his complexion changed. Imam al-Hussein's face was filled with grief. Layla asks Imam al-Hussein, Oh Imam, is my son in any sort of trouble? Did he get harmed? At this point, Ahibai, Imam al-Hussein turned towards Sayyida Layla, mother of Ali al-Akbar. She says to Sayyida Layla, that I know that the du'as of a mother are mustajab. Ali al-Akbar is faced with a very dangerous person from in front of him. I want you to go into the tent and do dua for your son, for indeed the du'as of a mother are mustajab. The narration mentions Sayyida Layla went into the khayma. She sat on the floor. She raised her hands towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and she did dua. Which is this dua? Allah, Allah. Sayyida Layla raised her hands and she said, Ilahi, Ya Radda Yusufa ila Yaqub, Ya Radda Ibrahim ila Hajar. Ya Allah, the one who sent back Yusuf to Yaqub. Oh Allah, you the one who sent back Ibrahim to Hajar. Look at the dua of Sayyida Layla. Look at the pain in the words of Sayyida Layla. She says, Ilahi bi ghurbatil Hussein. She says, Ya Allah, I am asking you by the loneliness of Imam al-Hussein. She says, Ilahi bi atashil Hussein. Ya Allah, by the sake of the thirst of Imam al-Hussein. She says, Ilahi bi sabril Hussein. Ya Allah, by the sabr of Imam al-Hussein, Rudda alayhi waladi Ali Saliman. She says, Ya Allah, return my son Ali back to me. Over here in the khayma, Sayyida Layla finishes her dua, and over there Ali al-Akbar gains victory over the enemy. No one is willing to come in front of Imam Ali al-Akbar. So the narration mentions Ali al-Akbar returned back towards the khayma, covered in wounds. A part of his armor was damaged. He comes back to the khayma and he says, Oh my father, the scorching sun, the heat outside, and the weight of this armor has made the thirst unbearable, O father. Imam al-Hussein looks at Ali al-Akbar and says to him, my dear son, it is only a little while until way before your grandfather will give you and quench your thirst from the cup of Kawthar. He gives sabr to Ali al-Akbar, and then he tells to Ali al-Akbar, go back to the tents and give or bid farewell to your mother Sayyida Layla for a last time. Allahu Akbar. The narration mentions Ali al-Akbar went into the Khaymaga. He finds Sayyida Layla is sitting on the tent and she is crying. As soon as she saw Ali al-Akbar, she stood up, she hugged him and she started crying. Look at the conversation between mother and son. Ali al-Akbar is seeing his mother is crying. He puts his hands on the shoulder of his mother. He says, oh mother, why do you cry? She says, how can I not cry when you are facing death? Ali al-Akbar tells Sayyida Layla, oh mother, do you not wish tomorrow on the day of judgment that you stand in front of Fatima az-Zahra and you tell her that I sacrificed my son for your son? As soon as Sayyida Layla heard this, she stopped crying. Ali al-Akbar bid farewell to Sayyida Layla, to Sayyida Zainab, to Sayyida Sukaina, all the women in the tent. Imam Ali al-Akbar then came out of the Khaymaga. He bid his father farewell for a last time. At that narration, Allah, Allah, ya Shia, Ali al-Akbar turns to Imam al-Hussein and he says, Abata, usika bi ammi khaira. He says, oh my father, my last advice, my last wasiyah to you is that you take care of my mother Layla. Allah, Allah. Ali al-Akbar went into the battlefield for one last time. He rode his horse and he went inside and he attacked them. فَإِنْ كَلَبَتْ مَيْمَنَتَهُمْ مَيْسَرَةً وَمَيْسَرَتَهُمْ مَيْمَنَةً. He attacked them, dispatching the right wing and the left wing. At this point, one person from the enemy by the name of Murra ibn Munkid, he looked at Ali al-Akbar and he said, by Allah, may the sins of all the Arabs fall upon me if I do not kill this boy. The narration mentions Murra came and he approached Ali al-Akbar from the side while he was protecting and fighting from the front. He came, the narration mentions, فَتَعَنَهُ بِالرُّمْحِ فِي ظَهْرِ. He came and he pierced Ali al-Akbar with a spear from his back. Allah, Allah. The spear became stuck inside the body of Ali al-Akbar. At this point, the narration mentions, فَضَرَبَهُ بِسَيْفِهِ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ وَعَلِيًّا وَمُصِيبَةً. The narration mentions he struck Ali al-Akbar with a sword on his head. He struck Ali al-Akbar with a sword on his head. The blood is pouring down the head of Ali al-Akbar. So he held on to the neck of the horse such that he does not fall over. As he held on to the neck of the horse, the blood from the head of Ali al-Akbar began to fall on the face of the horse. It covered the eyes of the horse. Allah, Allah, the horse cannot see where it is running. So it ran into the direction of the enemies. Everybody took a turn to hit Ali al-Akbar. This one hits him with a sword. This one hits him with a spear. The narration mentions فَقَطَّعُوهُ إِرْبًا إِرْبًا. They cut him to pieces until he fell down from the horse. He said, عَلَيْكَ مِنِّي السَّلَامِ Ya Aba Abdullah. Oh my father, these are my final salams. Sayyida Sukaina says that when my father heard the cry of Ali al-Akbar, it was as if his ruh was going to come out of his body. Imam al-Hussein went running towards Ali al-Akbar. He came towards the Maqam Ali al-Akbar. Ahibai, Majlis Tamam, Masahib is almost completed. The narration mentions these are the final moments of Ali al-Akbar. Narration mentions Imam al-Hussein came running. He sat by the side of Ali al-Akbar. He put the head of Ali al-Akbar on his lap. Allah, Allah. He wiped the blood and then he wiped the sand from the face of Ali al-Akbar. And then Imam al-Hussein put his cheek on the cheek of Ali al-Akbar. He heard Ali al-Akbar is whispering something. What is he whispering? Ali al-Akbar says to Imam al-Hussein, oh my father, I see Rasulullah, I see Fatima al-Zahra and Khadija. They have all come to take me to Jannah. Oh my father, he is my grandfather Ali al-Murtada. He has come with a cup from the pond of Kawthar. He is saying to me, tell your father, Al-Ajal, Al-Ajal. As soon as Ali al-Akbar said this, he went quiet. Allah, Allah, Ya Ibrahim, you are not able to see the sacrifice of your son Ismail, but come to Karbala. This is Hussein. His son Ali is cut to pieces in front of him. Matam ya Hussein.
ज़ैनब दुखिया बन कर बलमा खड़ी पुकारे वीरन हो। ज़ैनब दुखिया बन कर बलमा खड़ी पुकारे वीरन हो। सैयद प्यासे ए ज़हरा के राज दुलारे वीरन हो। ज़ैनब दुखिया बन कर बलमा खड़ी पुकारे वीरन हो। हक ने तेरा हर नाज उठाया, हक ने तेरा हर नाज उठाया। आके मलक ने झूला झुलाया, हाय ज़माना कैसा आया। खून तेरा ओ मात ने बहाया, दीन की नगरी के दीपक आकाश के तारे वीरन हो। ज़ैनब दुखिया बन कर बलमा खड़ी पुकारे वीरन हो। कासिम को अकबर को गवाया, भाई को दिलवर को गवाया। ससमा है असगर को गवाया, हक के लिए गरबर को लुटाया। दीन मुहम्मद की नैया के खैवान हारे वीरन हो। ज़ैनब दुखिया साबिर भैया के फिदाई, बन में लुटाई अपनी कमाई। रन में जवां की लाश उठाई, नार से दियो मात को रिहाई। पापी उम्मत के मोहसिन अल्लाह के प्यारे वीरन हो। ज़ैनब दुखिया बन घर को जलाने बेदी आए, बेकस ज़ैनब किसको पुकारे, सोते हैं सब सर को कटाए, आके खबर लो ऐ माँ जाए, गम की मारी दुखियारी के तुम ही सहारे वीरन हो, फैली है दुनिया में सियाही, बागे हसन में आई तबाही, हो गया दुल्हा खुल कराही, बेवा हुई एक रात की ब्याही, घेरे हुए हैं बरछियों वाले दुखिया पुकारे वीरन हो, दिल की तसल्ली घर का उजाला, पीस के चक्की माँ ने तपाला, दिन भी नजर में हो गया काला, मर गया तुम सा चाहने वाला, जाने नबी ज़हरा बीवी के आंखों के तारे वीरन हो, ज़ैनब दुखिया बनकर बलमा खड़ी पुकारे वीरन हो। या हुसैन
या अली, ऐसे आली अली अकबर सर मैदान विगा, जैसे बदली सा नया चाँद नमूदार हुआ, जैसे तस्वीर मोहम्मद से उठाओ पर्दा, जैसे हैदर की जवानी का चलन जलवानुमा, यक सल्ले अला नारत अकबर गूंजा, अना अली अब्नल हुसैन नब्ना अली नहनु व बैतिल्लाह बिन नबी ज़रब गुलामिन हाशमी इन अलवी अनाली यब्नल हुसैन नब्ना अली अनाली यब्नल हुसैन नब्ना अली नहनु व बैतिल्लाह औला बिन नबी अमा तरौ कैफ़ अम्मिहन अबी वल्लाह ला यहकुम फी नबनदगी हज़रब तुम हिस्सा अहमी अन अबी ज़रब गुलामिन हाशमी इन अलवी अना अली यब्नल हुसैन नब्ना अली अना अली यब्नल हुसैन नब्ना अली नहनु व बैतिल्लाह औला बिन नबी ज़रब गुलामिन हाशमी इन अली नाम अकबर अली अकबर है मेरा, मैं हुसैन इब्न अली का बेटा, खा रहा हूँ कसम बैतुल्लाह हूँ कसम बैतुल्लाह, हमको हासिल शरफ़े खून नबी अना अली यब्नल हुसैन नब्ना अली अना अली यब्नल हुसैन नब्ना अली नहनु व बैतिल्लाह ज़रब गुलामिन हाशमी इन अलवी शामिया अब मेरा हमला देखो, ज़रबत सैयद वाला देखो, मेरी तलवार का चलना देखो, तलवार का चलना देखो, ज़रबत हाशमी ज़रबे अलवी अना अली हुसैन नब्ना अली أنا علي أولى بالنبي.
Salawat. Okay, just a quick announcement before we depart here. Tomorrow we'll have a Majlis right after the Amal, which the Amal starts around 10:30. So Majlis should start around 11 to 11:30.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن. السلام عليك يا سيدة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا إمام حسن المجتبى. السلام عليك يا مولانا أبا عبد الله الحسين المظلوم المقتول بكربلاء. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. السلام عليك. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد بن علي الباكر. السلام عليك يا إمام جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام عليك يا إمام موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام عليك يا إمام حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا مولانا القائم الحجة المنتظر المهدي الطالب بدم المقتول بكربلاء والمنتقم من أعداء الزهراء. اللهم اجعلنا من أنصاره وأشيائه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.